Hey guys, today we're going to be going over food chains, food webs, and different energy flows throughout the ecosystems. This one is a little longer, so it is really important for you to have those fill-in-the-blank notes out and ready to go. So let's start here. We know that different groups of organisms consume energy in different ways, okay? This is a visual to kind of help you see that, okay? I want you to notice that on the bottom, this is grass. So I want you to think, we just learned about photosynthesis, which is how plants get their energy. Grass is a plant. So grass does photosynthesis. We know that bunnies eat, so do snakes, and so do eagles, okay? So I want you to notice which one has the largest spot on the pyramid, which one has the smallest spot, which one has the most of their organism. So let's keep going. So here we're going to touch on two big vocabulary words, consumers and producers, okay? Producers produce or make energy. Producers are plants, and they produce their energy from photosynthesis, okay? So that's a little reminder down here that a producer is a plant. Notice that they all start with P, just like photosynthesis does, okay? So outside of plants, you have your other organisms that eat things, which are consumers. They consume or eat energy. Consumers are the organisms that eat other organisms to survive, like us. There are different types of consumers based off what they eat, okay? And we're going to go deeper into that today. So first, starting with our producers, which are plants, we need to remember that all life on Earth relies on these plants, okay? There would not be any other ways to get energy on Earth if we did not have plants doing photosynthesis. So I want you to keep that in mind. Plants are very important. The reason is because they are the only type of organism that can take in the radiant energy from the sun and convert it into chemical energy for food. No other organism except producers can do this. Now I want to go back to this energy pyramid poster that we talked about. Notice who has the largest spot. That's right, it's producers. They're at the bottom. There is a larger chunk of producers down here, meaning that if this part was gone, the rest of the pyramid wouldn't have anything to stand on, okay? The other thing I want you to notice is how many of the organisms there are. There's a lot more grass than there are snakes or even bunnies, right? And that's how it really is in the world. There is more grass in this world than there are bunnies in this world. Just like there's more bunnies than there are snakes. And there's more snakes than there are eagles. So I want you to notice as we go up the pyramid, not only does the population of those species decrease, but so does how much energy they have, okay? So, hint, hint, the largest portion of energy is found at the bottom with the producers. So let's dive into the different types of consumers now. Remember, consumers eat things. The first type is herbivores. Herbivores consume only producers. Their bodies can only eat plants. They cannot handle eating meat, okay? Examples of these include rabbits, grasshoppers, squirrels, and cows. Each of these animals can only handle eating plants. That's what their body needs. The next type of consumer are carnivores. You guys know these. Carnivores only consume other animals or organisms, meaning they're meat eaters, okay? Because they're meat eaters, carnivores cannot eat plants at all. They can only consume other organisms. Examples of these include snakes, hawks, lions, and even sharks. So now, where do humans fit into this? I've ate plants before, but I also really like meat. And we're omnivores. Omnivores are special. They can consume both meat and plants. Their bodies can handle either type of food, okay? So this includes humans, flies, ducks are omnivores, and so are bears. Think about it. They eat fish, but they've also eat berries too, right? So omnivores can eat Both. Now, I want to stop here and I want you to think, okay? Remember how we talked about with plants, that plants use photosynthesis to make their energy because they can't eat. They also can't poop. Remember how we talked about that? In order to eat, you have to be able to poop. You can't do one without the other. You can't poop anything if you didn't eat anything, right? So that brings us to our next category of consumers, which are called detritivores. I want to give you a moment to say that word with me. Detritivore. One more time. Detritivore. Perfect. So detritivores eat dead organic material, okay? So dead organic material means it was alive at one point and now it's not. So this includes dead plants or dead animals. So remember, in order to eat, you have to poop, and detritivores eat, meaning they poop as well. And you're probably wondering, why does that even matter? Detritivores' poop is actually really important, okay? Because they're eating these dead organic materials, there's a lot of nutrients they're taking in that they probably don't need. And so when detritivores poop, their poop acts as a fertilizer for the soil, which then helps producers grow more, okay? So I want you to start to notice everything is connected. You've probably seen Lion King, the circle of life, right? So this has the same concept. So we eat the producers, or say the animals eat the producers. The detritivores eat the animals once they die, and then they poop, and their poop helps more producers grow. So let's keep going. Different examples of detritivores include things like earthworms, dung flies, and slugs as well. Here's some pictures of them. Now, what about the rest of the organisms, Like, I know I talked a lot about eating means you have to poop. And I know plants don't eat or poop, but does anything else do that? The answer is yes. Decomposers! These are a very special type of category of consumers, okay? So decomposers, they cannot eat, so they don't poop, okay? They don't eat, nor do they poop. Instead, decomposers decompose or break down dead organic material, okay? So detritivores eat the dead organic material. Decomposers break it down. So what that means is they break it down and the nutrients from the dead plants go straight into the soil. So instead of being consumed and pooped out, it goes straight into the soil. Without decomposers and detritivores, the dead plants and animals wouldn't break down and our world would just be covered with dead plant and animal bodies everywhere. Decomposers and detritivores are super important for not only creating creating new soil that's full of nutrients for producers, okay? But that's also how we don't have dead plant and animal bodies living around everywhere. If the detritivores and decomposers weren't returning those nutrients to the soil, the producers wouldn't be able to grow any longer, and then ultimately, without producers, everybody dies. Examples of decomposers, they don't eat or poop, they break down, are mushrooms, bacteria, and fungi. So here's some pictures. So these are mushrooms. This is a microscopic picture of bacteria, and this is an example of a tree fungi. So we've kind of talked about how they're related. Okay, we know there's different types of consumers and we know what a producer is. So now let's look at how the energy actually flows through them, okay? So let's go ahead and keep going. So here we can see that food chains, so I want you to think of a chain, okay? They are linked one to one. So a food chain shows how energy flows through an ecosystem. This part is important. The arrow shows which direction the energy is going, okay? The arrow shows the direction of energy. So remember, it's a chain, so they just go one at a time. For example, we have grass down here, which is a producer. Our first consumer is going to be the rabbit who eats the grass. The energy comes from the grass into the rabbit, so the arrow points to the rabbit. Next, the snake is going to eat the rabbit, so the energy from the rabbit goes to the snake. Finally, this hawk eats the snake, so the energy from the snake goes to the hawk. Notice how the arrow points to who gets the energy. So here, we need to talk about how we can dissect our food chain, okay? We always have to start with a producer because everything on earth relies on those producers first to get their energy, okay? And remember, their energy comes from the sun. Sometimes you'll see the sun included on the food chain and sometimes you won't. Either answer works well. You just have to have that producer there. So after the producer, you only have one producer for your food chain because a plant's not going to eat another plant. After that, you move into your consumers, like your bunny, who's an herbivore, your snake, which is a carnivore, and so is your hawk, which is a carnivore. So now, each level of consumer gets its special name, okay? So first, to eat the producer is primary, okay? The P eats the producer, primary. He's first in line to get the energy. The second consumer is the secondary consumer. But I want you to notice, he's not second in the food chain. He's the second consumer in the food chain, okay? The last one is tertiary. So this is the third consumer, okay? Remember, tertiary, he's the third consumer. Not third in line, the third consumer, okay? You might need to pause the video now to make sure this is recorded in your notes. So, like we talked about, the primary consumers come first to consume the plants, okay? Primary consumers have to be herbivores or omnivores because they're eating a plant, and carnivores don't eat plants, okay? The secondary consumer is second to consume, right? So they are always eating other animals in the food chain, meaning they have to be an omnivore who eats both plants and animals or a carnivore. This means herbivores can only be primary consumers who eat the plants because herbivores can only eat plants. The last one, the third consumer, is the tertiary consumer. Now, here's the weird part. We don't give a name to the fourth and the fifth and the sixth consumer in line. Third and above is all called a tertiary consumer, okay? They are always eating other animals, so they have to be omnivores or carnivores. So once you have a food chain, we can expand to the whole ecosystem, which is a food web. Okay, so the food web shows how many organisms rely on the same food source within an ecosystem. Okay, so I want you to notice down here we have two producers, flowers and grass. They are producers who are plants. Now, as we move up the line, you can see that we have our primary consumers who are first in line to consume. That's our ladybug, who can eat the flowers or the grass. She has a choice. The bunnies eating the flowers, and the butterflies are consuming from the flowers as well. These are primary consumers because they are eating the producers first. After that, you get to your secondary consumers, which in this case is the frog, okay? The snake, because he's eating the bunny, and the bird, because he is eating the ladybug, okay? Finally, you have your tertiary consumer, which is your eagle, and he's a carnivore, okay? So notice how the arrow points to who gets the energy, okay? So now let's talk about that energy. How much energy actually gets transferred? How many bunnies does a snake have to eat to be full? I don't know. Let's dig into it. we dig into it with what's called the 10% rule, okay? So what that means is that each level of the energy pyramid gets 10% of what it consumes. So let's talk about this. When the rabbit eats the grass, they get 10% of the energy from the grass, okay? So now rabbits have that energy. But when the snake eats the rabbit, he gets 10% of the energy from the rabbit. The snake does not get 10% energy from the grass because some of that energy was already used by the bunnies. The snake only gets 10% of the energy of who he eats, which was the rabbit. Okay? The last one, the eagle, whenever they eat the snake, they get 10% of the snake's energy. They don't get 10% of the bunny or the grass. The eagle ate the snake, so they get 10% of the energy from the snake. Okay? So I will show you in Canvas, I will add this poster with the numbers included. So be sure to add that as a screenshot to your personal notes.